Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar on why and how to switch to monthly software purchasing. Today presenting, we have our SMB sales manager, Ian Lane from PECS. He'll be presenting the duration of the webinar. Before we do start, I'm just going to run through some very quick housekeeping with you all. Just to let you know that during the webinar you will be muted, but if you do have any questions at any time, please feel free to submit them via the questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll then hold a short Q&A at the end of the webinar for those of you who do have any questions. Just to let you know, the webinar will be recorded and made available to you should you wish to see it again, if you've missed anything or wish to share it with your colleagues. There will also be a feedback form that will be sent to you after the webinar, so if you could submit your feedback via this survey, that would be much appreciated. I'm just going to hand over to Ian now, who will be running through the webinar with you. Thank you so much.
Good morning all, and thank you for attending. As per the title for this webinar, why and how to switch to monthly software purchasing, what we're going to actually do is have a look at the challenge of OPEX versus CAPEX, and then look at how Bytes can potentially assist and the unique offering that we have. To start though, let's have a quick positioning of Bytes for those that aren't aware of us. Been around since 1982, £194 million turnover, part of the Ultron Group. The core component to look at here is where we actually sit within Microsoft's stack. Currently, we are the #1 partner for Office 365 and the number of seats that we manage and help our client base consume. And we're also the #1 partner in the UK for the amount of Azure that we manage and help our client base consume, currently at around the 35% mark. In addition to that, we then have the full service teams that sit around that, the training team, the SAM team, of which ours is the largest in the UK, a full pre- and post-sales services and delivery team, and we then also take those skills into the other vendors and solution stacks that are out there, which you can see at the bottom of our solutions team. In terms of setting the scene for the webinar, first thing that we'd like to talk through is the traditional challenge of OPEX versus CAPEX. To simplify this, we've tried to break this down to have a look at how this can affect your organizations and the challenges that you have to go through. CAPEX versus OPEX, in a nutshell, we are looking at the purpose of it, how you pay for it, the accounting approach, which is obviously very important. Almost as important as the actual payment is then the tax treatment, which predominantly the finance directors are very interested in. So CAPEX versus OPEX, if we look at the purpose, it's traditionally from a CAPEX perspective, procurement of assets that will predominantly have a useful lifestyle beyond the current year, whereas against OPEX, we're looking at ongoing costs incurred to run a business. Traditionally, they are paid CAPEX as a lump sum within 30 days, or more often than not, they will then be financed with additional charges across that. Obviously, OPEX is traditionally a monthly, but can be a quarterly / half-yearly billing model. In terms of the accounting approach, traditionally with a CAPEX model, you're looking at between 3 to 5 years as a depreciation entry. We then compare that to OPEX, which allows you to take the full value in the current year on a per month or a roll-up cycle. Where it becomes very interesting is when you then look at the tax treatment of that in terms of the deduction of as the asset appreciates under CAPEX, which actually has a defined period, and the traditional challenge there is whether you can actually extract the full value of that CAPEX investment via the depreciation route. If you compare that to OPEX, OPEX is very simple in that you can actually take the whole amount and offset it in that current tax year. To give a feel for an example, we're obviously looking at, say, buying a data center server, or from an OPEX perspective, consuming a cloud server. Other components to take into consideration are then the arrangement and the flexibility of either of those models. CAPEX will traditionally drive asset ownership. It becomes your responsibility, whatever that asset is, for upgrading, maintaining, potentially changing that asset. From an OPEX perspective, you still take asset ownership, but you are then able to deliver full flexibility to change, amend, expand or replace because of the nature of the model that you're taking that under. Now that can apply to many different things. It could apply to, as we said there, a data center server, it could be a laser printer, it could be a service. Some of those will obviously be Capex. But that sets the scene of where we're at. What we'd like to actually do now is take that into an example desktop IT budget to just map out those additional challenges that most IT departments will face on an annual basis just delivering their desktop. We've given a pure play example here that encompasses the core components that would probably sit in and around a desktop. So Microsoft PDF utilization, security, email security, SAM, backup, training and support. And we've taken a typical example of a 12-month period for any IT team utilizing and delivering that desktop to its clients within its customer. As we can see, you normally end up with the spiky types of procurement. That means that at any given month, you might have a breather or you may well be in another negotiation for a renewal or an anniversary. And this means there's continual focus on ensuring that budget is available, etc. So what we've tried to give you a feel for is just the lumpy nature of the Capex spend. That in itself presents additional work and additional challenges. If we then tie that into further challenges that are presented, which we'll go into in a moment, what we're going to actually use is this example later in the webinar to show how we can smooth that procurement process out, deliver additional flexibility and deliver a much easier to manage budgetary process to look at not just desktop, we can also look at infrastructure, which we will go into later. Traditionally, the Capex model, many of these notes that we put here are probably familiar to many people, the challenges that are delivered by Capex, and these aren't in any particular order. It's the fact that when you do go to get the Capex signed off, you'll often be requested to produce a business case. Why do we need to do this? What's the value? What's the ROI? It does mean that the business has to do it in substantial investment chunks. Does it fit the cash flow of the business? It also makes non-planned investments very challenging. And I imagine, for example, very much flavour of the time, the challenge of going to beef up potentially your security estate at the moment with the numerous different attacks that have been out there, etc. The business comes to you, asks for the beefing up of that security. However, it's not in the budget. Therefore, it becomes a challenge to actually get that through. You then have the challenge of gaining the full realized value of the asset, sweating of that asset, which means that it can then lead to a lack of flexibility for the IT team, because that speed of change within within the IT team and the ability to for that team to respond is often driven by the business requirements. The business will be pushing for additional functionality, additional capability from IT. But if that is controlled by the back-end monetary value of the infrastructure, it then becomes a challenge for IT. In certain cases, it can actually drive the definition of the roadmap because of that inability to flex, that inability to change. It means that organizations will have to lock themselves into a defined roadmap that is elongated compared to the speed of change that comes through the IT industry. That leads to the temporal spread, lengthening that time to change. How does the business react to the market? Will my business be the last player to move into that space that we should have been in 12 months ago? And it boils down to the crystal ball challenge of, as IT teams to deliver into your businesses, we're asked to go out and create budgets that could be 12 months, could be 36 months, could even be 4 to 5 years in length. And having the ability to look into that future to understand, one, what the business is going to come and ask you to do, but two, what functionality, what solution is going to be out there that could aid your business is a massive challenge. It's how do we now look to and address those challenges that are presented? Bytes have actually worked on a solution that takes the premise of an offering that Microsoft have in the marketplace, but have expanded that, and we would like to introduce CloudFlex. CloudFlex hopefully will present an alternative to the challenges that we've just outlined there that is faced by Capex procurement. CloudFlex allows you to deliver exactly the same environment that we talked about in terms of the example IT desktop, and allows you to deliver it in a very flexible, cost-effective and agile manner. With CloudFlex, there's 5 components to look at. First off is absolutely agility at the core. CloudFlex will allow you to flex not just the number of users that you have in the solution, it will also allow you to flex products within solution stacks. So for example, if we take Microsoft at the core, you can have a mixture of, say, Office 365 different versions. You can then flex those numbers monthly and change those versions monthly. So for example, if you're going into your first cloud journey, you could start with Exchange Online for your user environment. After 3 to 4 months, decide, right, I'm going to move a department into the full 365 environment, and that would allow you to then migrate those users from an Exchange E1 into a full 365 plan at the flick of a switch. The same will then apply to the other vendors and solutions that you will see coming in the stack. The second component to look at is the cost saving. You truly only pay for what you need and utilize. And what that then enables you to do is leverage an advantageous price point. That price point will be shown to you later in this deck to show you where the consumption model sits in terms of Microsoft pricing stack for Office 365, and allow you to see and understand how those savings can be arrived. One of the core things to think about is that by utilizing a flexible model, you will only ever pay for the right version, the right quantity in any given month of any of the applications that you'll be utilizing. Cash is the next point. Because you're paying for that consumption monthly and potentially services and solutions, as you will see, the cash stays in your business. Instead of committing high numbers on an annual basis, you are paying on a monthly basis. The cash stays in your business for your business to utilize and drive better value from. It actually does save time. Once you are actually into a CloudFlex agreement, the traditional model of having to go out and renegotiate deals, involve vendors, etc., is very much reduced because of the nature of the pricing structures, because of the nature of the relationship that Bytes have with those vendors. We're able to deliver the very competitive price points on your behalf and take away some of the challenges of negotiating with the vendors. We then provide you portal-based management for the whole solution, so you are able to manage your agreement, look at your agreements at any given time, understand exactly what you own, what you have deployed, whether you have spare consumption licenses. It makes the process of adding, deleting and flexing your user base very, very simple. To ensure that we're delivering across the full stack into the desktop space, of which we're using that as the example today, there is also then a full portfolio of security solutions and backup and disaster recovery solutions. And in addition to that, we also have the service stack and the training stack, which you will see from the next slide. To be simple, what actually is in the box within a CloudFlex? At the core of the consumption models is the Microsoft Online Service Stack, so the Office 365 stack. What Bytes have then looked at is what potentially are the requirements that sit around that stack in terms of either you're already on 365, you're thinking of moving to Office 365, or you already have Office 365. If we start at the top of the wheel, we actually start with the migration piece, we move through training, we move through email archiving, through to backing up, we then look at the security piece, we look at enhancement, and we then look at how to support your environment, and we then look at how to asset manage those. What Bytes have actually looked at is what are the best of breed solutions out there in terms of each one of those elements. And we've brought together the vendors that we're proud to include within this solution that you can see there today. So if we take, for example, email archiving and security, the industry leader is Mimecast. We have brought Mimecast to the table. If we look at security, very relevant at the moment, we bring the full Sophos suite to the table. If we look at asset management, we are bringing Snow, global leader in terms of asset management, to that solution. What is unique about CloudFlex is the ability for clients now to consume those vendors on a per month, per user basis. Currently in the marketplace today, none of those vendors offer that model unless you are stepping into an outsourced or fully managed environment managed by an outsourcer, a third party, an ISV. Bytes are able to bring that to the market today. So we can, and quite comfortably can, provide to you monthly per user costs for the full Mimecast, Sophos and Snow stacks. In addition to that, we are then able to offer at the introduction of potentially 365 to your environments, the migration solutions. We are then able to offer flexible training models, again all consumed on a per user per month basis. To protect and provide backup to your environment, we can provide full Office 365 searchable backup, again per user per month. Once you've actually gone on that journey, or you've already completed that journey, we then have the ability to enhance and support your environments. LiveTiles is currently one of the leaders in SharePoint utilization and development, and again, monthly per user consumption. Where it becomes a complete loop is that Bytes are also able to offer multi-level, multifaceted support to your desktop environment, again paid on a per user per month basis. In terms of bringing a complete solution together, all of those components are part of CloudFlex. However, the beauty of CloudFlex is you can take as many or as few of those solutions as you wish to complement either your preferences or your requirements, or, as you will see in the next couple of slides, your budgets and how you wish to go on your journey to cloud, or whether you are in cloud already. The core thing to say, however, is CloudFlex does not have to start with Microsoft. CloudFlex with Bytes can start with any of the vendors that you see on that slide today. We've created that because if we play back to the traditional lumpy, committed Capex approach to delivering, in this example, the desktop, there is a high likelihood that you potentially will have a renewal or a negotiation with potentially, say, your security partner before your Microsoft, before an anniversary that would drive the Microsoft consumption. However, the project may be, we do want to go to cloud. What it means is that you can move into the consumption model immediately. And as you'll see from the next slide, it doesn't have to be a renewal. It can be an anniversary that can drive into the CloudFlex model. That covers the vendors within that. There is flexibility within that vendor stack. And again, that would be an active conversation that Bytes would be happy to have with you. If that is a component for yourselves, please fire that in as a question and we'll look to answer that at the end, or we can take that offline and come back to you via your account manager. What we'd like to do is actually make some points of note around CloudFlex, because there's some quite unique components here. One, it's best of breed solutions and vendors. The approach still leaves the control of negotiation with you as the client. So if we take Sophos, for example, you still have the ability to go out and negotiate your price point in the traditional manner that you do now, with our help, obviously, and with our knowledge and understanding of those vendor solutions. That drives the price point, so you still get the competitive upfront negotiated price point. What we then do at PECS is then move that into a monthly model. Where it is quite unique is that it applies to both new vendors and solutions and or renewals. So again, if we play back the Sophos example, you may have Sophos already, you may have a renewal due, but you'd like to now start to take that from from Capex to OpEx. We can take a renewal and move that and use that as a starting point for a CloudFlex agreement, so it doesn't have to be net new. There is no finance charges, penalties or cost implications for moving to the monthly consumption. In addition to that, there are no management, outsource, overhead costs applied. What we actually have produced here is a procurement vehicle to move towards the consumption model. Microsoft have made the big step, and you can now consume their products monthly. The other vendors traditionally don't offer that solution. That's why we've come to the market with that solution to complement it. Flexibility is the watchword of CloudFlex. You can mix and match your requirements and timescales during the period. CloudFlex is a 12-month renewable agreement with Bytes, and as you will see, you can start with one vendor, add more vendors, take vendors out of the solution with it on a 12-monthly basis. What it does build is pure flexibility into how you consume your environment. Obviously, we're using the desktop as an example here, but as you will see later, this will apply to infrastructure as well. What it does deliver is clear and control costs. It allows you to understand what is the actual monthly cost of that desktop to my business. When you have new starters come on board, when budgets are applied, you know, IT can deliver those costs back to the business. Where it becomes very crucial is in the year that you move from Capex to OpEx, you actually save cash in that year. In the example that we gave earlier, we assigned £144,000 to your Microsoft renewal as an example. As you will see in a moment, that is massively reduced in the first year, and that frees cash up into your business to potentially approach other projects, bring forward and accelerate the utilization of IT, allow you to reallocate budget to projects that were not budgeted in this FY. As we said, if we now look at exactly the same consumption, so Microsoft PDF security, email security, SAM, backup training and support, with exactly the same anniversaries as the previous example, but moving them into the monthly consumption model. The crucial component to look at is the CapEx versus OpEx cost in that year of transition. As we said, it was just short of 275,000, the budget that we've given here as an example. If we use exactly the same anniversaries, taking the same costs, that's without the assistance of Bytes in terms of negotiating your deals, potentially driving a better price point, etc. The actual cost of delivering exactly the same infrastructure but using a different commercial model in year one is £152,000. That actually drives a cash surplus from the budget in that year of £122,000. What this actually then delivers is a much flatter, understandable budget for delivering your IT. What this doesn't show, though, however, is any flexibility within there. a traditional example, let's take a Microsoft agreement. You are a 300-seat business and you are under an MPSA, an OVS, potentially an EA or an EAS when the seat count was lower. You've committed to Microsoft that you will pay them for that amount regardless of what your business does. Now, if your business restructures and decides it's going to be 250 users, Microsoft will not give you a refund for that. However, if you're under a consumption model, literally in the month that you decide that you are going to restructure and move your headcount to say 250, that will be reflected 1 month later in your bill. The same applies to growth. You can budget and understand exactly what growth in your business will cost you in terms of the solution. How does a client look to move to BCA? It's actually a very, very simple process. Via your account management team here at Bytes, we can set up a CloudFlex agreement very, very simply. As we said at the start, you can start with one vendor that is in that stack. It doesn't have to be Microsoft. Once you've signed the BCA agreement with Bytes, the master CloudFlex agreement, as we call it, we will then produce the portalage access for you. We will provide you access to that. We have a team here that onboard you to that portal. We will start with the number of users that you wish to have within that environment and the vendor or solution that you wish to have. From there, it becomes a monthly bill payable in arrears for the previous month's consumption. As soon as you have signed that and your consumption model is moved across, you start reaping the benefits of that BCA. In terms of adding additional software vendors, again, because you have the agreement set up with us, we now actually, and we are changing this slide, you actually don't even have to complete the CloudFlex addendum because we've amended the master to cover all of the vendors. We will update the portal. You will then have access to your license information and you will be utilizing those consumption licenses on a flexible model. We can, where needed, if it is a driver for an organization who wishes to look at CloudFlex and provide a co-term agreement, we can take renewals into CloudFlex and drive co-term. So if we look at the original traditional model that we looked at with lumpy procurement across the year, we can work with our client base to bring all of those vendors that deliver, in this example, the desktop stack for your organization, and we can look to co-term and bring them all into a single renewal date. So for that environment, it will be one touch a year to deliver the cost in terms of where we're at. The final component is then the flexibility. Flexing is very simple. If we take Microsoft as the example, you can do that through the portal. You can amend the number of users. That from that amendment would then reflect directly. We have direct connectivity into the admin portal, which you as the customer can then utilize to assign your consumption licenses, and you can go up and down, add your users as simply as logging into the portal. On the flip side, if you do wish, you can absolutely talk to your account manager here at Bytes. If you wish to follow that process, you may have a traditional, we still need to issue a purchase order process. That's absolutely fine. We will be utilizing the same portal to drive your consumption. What it doesn't allow us to do is obviously connect to your admin portal, that is yours as the client, but we will manage the licenses that you are able to assign and consume through that admin portal via the portal that we will provide to you. In terms of flexibility, you are literally a couple of screens away from being able to drive the exact quantities that your business needs. Everything sits under one BCA agreement. So for example, even the traditional model, you'll often be signing multiple agreements with different vendors and different solution stacks with different renewal dates, everything would sit under the BCA. What becomes very interesting if we focus on Office 365 is to understand where the consumption model sits in terms of the Microsoft agreement stack, which is quite a complicated stack. If we take a look at the slide that we have on screen now, traditionally the best pricing structures from Microsoft were available via an enterprise agreement. Microsoft made that very challenging, specifically in the sub 500 seat for sub 500 seat organizations, when they made the change from enterprise agreement being minimum of 250 seats to 500 seats. Secondly, the challenge of enterprise agreement is that you have to commit to loading the software that you procure on every device that is available to run it. So you are controlled. To get to that high discount point, you are controlled by how you deliver. You have to put it on every device. You have to have a minimum of 500 seats. Below that then are other perpetual models or cloud models that sit under the open or the MPSA programs. And then we have the Bytes CloudFlex agreement for Office. As we can see from the bottom, current pricing for the CloudFlex agreement allows us to deliver somewhere between a 6 and 8% saving against the entry-level enterprise agreement cost. So if we compare a 3-year commit enterprise agreement price to a 3-year consumption price, on average across the full Microsoft Office stack, not just Office itself, so all the products that sit within their online services catalog, there's between a 6 to 8% saving on average for the client. So you're actually gaining a saving just by moving to the monthly consumption model. You then gain again by being able to consume monthly in a fully flexible fashion, and gain again by having the cash in your business not committed up front. So that gives you an idea of where and how the pricing at the core sits. The same equation and maths then sit and apply to those other vendors. It allows that negotiation and that point to drive the costs lower. And again, it's very difficult in a short period of time to give you all of the flexibility and the abilities in terms of the commercial and structuring models for the solution stack in this short period of time. However, we're more than happy to have conversations with yourselves as clients or prospective clients to create a model to show you how this would work for your business. Where it becomes really interesting, we've focused on the desktop environment today to give you that example of how CloudFlex works. What we can do, and what we do have as an offering, and we will be doing additional webinars for this, is we also have CloudFlex Reserve. Azure in itself comes as a consumption model. That's great. So Azure at the core is there ready to consume. However, it's when you then look at the services and the requirements that sit around that and the flexibility of those services. And again, this is provided as a pointer slide within this deck to say that everything that we've spoken about using online services and Office 365 as an example can be delivered, and we do deliver, for Azure. And again, a conversation with your account manager, and we can arrange a call or a meeting to take that into a further discussion. So you can move online services and your infrastructure with the service stack around it and the products and vendors that tie into that, both can move to the monthly consumption model. In terms of next steps, there's a lot more information that we can provide on this. This is a very high level component to hopefully start the thinking for those listening in on how we can change the view of looking at these two types of environments, the desktop and the infrastructure. core questions to consider is, do you currently use Office 365 and Azure, or have you got a project that includes either? Or do you have a renewal or anniversary, not just for those products, but for other products within the stack that you would like to move to a different commercial consumption model? And actually, do you want to drive better value from that budget in terms of freeing cash up in your business, in terms of a conversation with the finance director on how this could benefit the business? The core thing is to come and ask the question to us. We are very flexible with this solution. If there is something that appeals to your organization or yourselves, but it may need a slight change, we are very flexible in how this works, and we can normally accommodate. However, from core, we know and we understand that today this is a unique solution in the marketplace in terms of a commercial model to consume the tier 1 vendors that we have within the solution. The very simple message from ourselves is, wherever you are on your journey to the Microsoft Cloud, we can help. I'd like to close on that commentary. My details are on that slide. I would be more than happy to take any direct questions, should you wish to either my phone or to my email address. However, we do have a questions panel, and I believe we've got some questions coming up. So if you can bear with me for sort of 20 seconds while I encapsulate the questions, I'll look to read them out and provide the answers. Hi. So having a look at the questions, I'm going to extract a couple of them out straight away. There is a number of questions coming from one person that I believe would probably be better delivered in terms of a direct conversation, and I will make contact with Lawrence Metcalf later today with regards to that. But to pick out a couple of questions, one of the questions has been, if you're using Office 365 E1 on CloudFlex and then want to look at changing to a different version, say E3 or E5, can you switch product type just like you can change the number of seats? 100% yes. You can on a monthly basis switch between different versions and different quantities. It is a case of making the amendments in the portals. Those license consumption will then reflect in your admin portal, and you can utilize those versions as you wish. So for example, you may decide that your business would like E1 across the board, which you utilize. You may have a special project, a 3-month project. You may bring in some temporary contractors, designers, project managers, and for whatever reason they need E5 and they need project. You could fire those E5s and projects up, use them, and when that project is completed, turn them off. So in answer to that question, yes, you can. Another question that has come through is, if we were to go down the CloudFlex route and further down the line, circumstances within the company changed and the decision was made to return to Capex self-hosted, would there be barriers to returning to that setup? offboarding a service that Bytes will provide? Absolutely, because CloudFlex is a 12-month consumption-based model with Bytes. At the end of that 12-month period, you could choose to actually say, we want to bring this back in-house into a traditional Capex model. That would be perfectly acceptable. It's feasible to do. You wouldn't have to change tenancies. You wouldn't have to change how the back end of that is delivered. It would be changing back your accounting function within your business to move it to a Capex model. Okay. The other couple of questions that we've pulled out. As I've said, I'll make contact with Lawrence in terms of the questions that you've asked. Should you have any other questions, please feel free to fire them into the tellmemore@bytes.co.uk email address, or as per when the deck goes out, my own email address is there, ian.lane@bytes.co.uk, and I'll be more than happy to address any questions that you may have. I'd like to thank you for attending. I hope you found this webinar useful, maybe presented some challenges to you, maybe got some creative thinking going, but it's now starting to present a different, more flexible view to how you consume not just your online services, but also your infrastructure. Thank you.